point is going to take some serious people. And right now, the people that allowed us are the race baiters, the people who are racist themselves, the Al Sharptons of the world that we like to joke about on the show. But not for nothing, I don't know if we can get to a point where we can get it back, is my point.
Look, there's no coming back, honestly. When you think about it, young black males in particular, they live in the inner cities. If they're raised by a single parent, that's all they got most of the time. And by the way, I'm singling them out because there's riots constantly from that community. But white out-of-wedlock birth rates are high as well, and higher than they used to be. However, the black community blows everybody else out of the water when it comes to these topics. Their incarceration rate blows everybody else out of the water. So they're in inner cities, single-parent households if they're lucky. Very rarely is the father in their lives. They go to schools that are failing, and then what do you expect? High incarceration rates, idiocy in the streets, lunacy.
You know, we haven't talked about not the unwitting accomplice, but people who are complicit in this. That's the media. As we've seen in our chat room here at www.behindthemelines.radio.us, we're getting reports from people in the chat room saying that white reporters are pulling out of Milwaukee because it's gotten too violent for them there. How much has the media stimulated all this anger and churned up all this hostility in these communities, Russ? I mean, we see on CNN this week a mischaracterization of a quote from, I believe it was the sister of the young man you were talking about, saying, don't loot in our communities, go to the suburbs and loot there, and they mischaracterize it as a call for calm within the community to stop rioting. Come on. You gotta think the media here is, at fault, probably more so than the politicians these days.
But I actually agree with her. People in Milwaukee, don't burn your own neighborhoods down. Go to Tom Brokaw's neighborhood, go to Anderson Cooper's neighborhood. Burn those neighborhoods down. Them specifically, maybe even. They're with you in the struggle. They are hashtag Black Lives Matter. They're with you. Go get them. Get them. Make them feel your pain.
Alrighty then. So here's what we're going to do right now. We got some interviews to play. I'm going to try to figure out the microphone situation here in studio, the makeshift studio, as we're transitioning between many different places here behind Enemy Lines. And when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion. But first, I want you to hear from Burgess Owens, former Super Bowl champion with the Oakland Raiders, former New York Jet. We're not going to hold that against him, though. And he's going to talk about his new book. You'll hear all about his positions on this. And then also, we want to give our listeners a glimpse into the corruption and the tyranny that is the People's Republic of New York City when we talk to Micah Morrison from Judicial Watch and his latest story talking about the new Tammany Hall. Gene and Russ behind Enemy Lines. Take a listen to our interview here with Burgess Owens, and we'll be back after all these interviews to wrap things up a little bit, put a nice bow on it, and maybe offend more people. So here we go. Is he a great athlete in his day, Super Bowl champion, but also an author, a speaker, an activist? Burgess Owens, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Gene. And of all the things that I can be called, please call me a very, very, very proud American. I love this country, and I love the opportunity it gives all of us to move forward.
I like what I'm hearing so far. That's fantastic. I'm going to put that in there. So, Burgess, listen, I see that you got a new book out. I love the title, by the way. It's maybe one of the best titles to a book I've ever heard. Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men into Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps. Fantastic. How did you come up with the this is not your first book, right?
Yeah, this I had another book out of a while back, but this is the one that really, I think, kind of had a chance to bring all together my thoughts for decades. Gene, I grew up during a very, very special time, segregated South, down in Tallahassee, Florida, and I had a chance to see around me so many great men and women, communities that were successful moving forward. When we all left there was no doubt in anybody's mind that we could succeed no matter who we went against. Those are true men. And so over the years, I've seen a difference. I've seen men that all of a sudden don't respect women. They don't have a vision. They don't want to protect anyone. It's all about them. And so it comes down to, if I was back in my day with my dad, my granddad, that's what they would call the men today. A lot of the black men today, whiners, weenies, and wimps, not visionary, and we're where we are within our black community because we're letting a bad ideology direct and drive our future. We need to change that.
Okay, now when you talk about bad ideology, I assume we're talking about liberalism, which we say on the show all the time. There's got to be something something wrong in your head, in your brain chemistry, if you think that giving everything up to government is the way to go. Do you feel that government has created a dependency culture within, not even just black communities, but inner city communities?
Yeah, it's a philosophy. And if I can say it this way, we don't have today a racial crisis. We really don't, even though it appears that way. What we have at the very deep center of our country is an ideology crisis. We're up against socialism, Marxism, atheism, and we have to decide whether we're going to go that route that they're pushing us for decades now, or we get back to our Judeo-Christian values of capitalists, entrepreneurs, empathy, love for each other. That is what the American dream has always been about, and we've been so successful back during my growing up days. And these liberals have done a good job of stealth and getting into our communities. If I can just say this one quick dream, because I think people need to understand the perspective I have growing up when I did. A lot of people don't realize that from 1865 to 1965, the black community is one of the most productive, successful, competitive, Christian-based races in our nation. We were a force to be dealt with. We over 50% of, this is in the 60s, 50% of blacks throughout our country were part of the middle class. We had the highest percentage of entrepreneurs in the country, which is why the middle class was so strong. We had the highest percentage of men committed to marriage and their children than any other race in our country. We were so competitive in terms of black entrepreneurs that in 1932, the Democrats had put together something called the Davis-Bacon Act to protect the all-white unions against black entrepreneurs. That is still in the books today, still protected by the same cowards, the Democrats, that now has our entrepreneurs down to less than 2% in our country. So if you really understand where this all begins, it's by stealth, and it's on purpose, and it's all about policies.
And as you write in your book, you talk about how the social welfare programs of the 60s, the Great Society, and et cetera, that really turned the tables for especially your community, because the incentive to stay single, to not go after a job, it took all of that motivation and all that innovation, it took the wind out of everybody's sails, right?
It actually did, and it's all been about black policies. Let me just say that we're going to talk about the black policies that led us to where we are today. But more importantly, I want everybody to understand the stealth, the real deal with Democratic Party, the stealth and evil intents of the Democratic Party. I'll explain that in a second. But anti-black policy, the Davis-Bacon Act, the anti-school choice, which keeps kids dumb and ignorant and illiterate, which is going on in all these liberal cities around our country. The minimum wage, which does not allow black kids to have an opportunity to have a job. 83% of young black males out of work should be a big deal now. And of course, welfare by Democrats was what decimated our family unit. But here's the deal. Back in 1910, the NAACP was formed. It was not formed by black men and women. It was formed by 21, and I list them all in my book, 21 wealthy, white, socialist, Marxist, atheist, race-controlled Democrats. The antithesis, by the way, of the black community at that time, which were the Martin Luther King Sr. Christians, capitalists, entrepreneurs, very patriotic. So they do stealth in the blackface of W.E. Du Bois, which they do. They love hiding behind the curtains. They put in the liberalism, the integration, the abortion, all those messages that I've talked about in my book. Today, it is BET, Black Entertainment Television. Has not been black-owned for 15 years. It's owned by wealthy, white, liberal Democrats, the Firestones and Viacom. And they have been for 15 years firehosing my community with anti-white, anti-police, anti-woman, anti-family, anti-Christian, anti-American. Anything that is failure-based is pushed into my community. And you wonder why they have so many hopeless people who, when they stub their toe, they blame white people or rich people because they have no idea about the American dream and the opportunities that are out there for them. So we need to pull back the curtains on these bullies and cowards, these racist white liberals that own BET, and allow the message that now we see on the streets. Have Phil Dorman, Sherry Redstone, the board of directors of Viacom, speak to us about BET and why the message they put in there is now led to the streets of Black Lives Matter and assassination of these policemen. They need to come to answer to us, and we can deal with them with a free enterprise niche that we can always work with when we find out who the cowards really are.
You know, I'm glad that you mentioned Black Lives Matter, because it's always been my position that if you are a reasonable person, then of course you want to get to the bottom of every perceived wrong in our nation. If someone's sitting in the car, I don't care what color they are, and they're ended up being shot by the police, I want to know what happened there. I don't care who they are. If someone's tussling with a police officer and they're shot while they're laying on the ground, of course I want to know what happened, and I want to know what went wrong and how we can improve it. We can always improve everything. We can always reform everything. Why is Black Lives Matter not taking this message to everyone? Because I think it's one that can resonate. It's not just one segment of the community that benefits by police reform, for instance. It's not just one segment of the community that benefits by jobs reforms and economic programs. Why is it only being targeted for one specific group? Is it because there is a political agenda behind it?
Oh, no question. Keep in mind, guys, we're up against an election time. And understand who benefits when this goes on. Understand who's benefited by the misery of blacks across our country. It's always been Democrats. We have 90% of blacks voting for Democrats because of the message of misery. But here's why you only find it where you are. It is BET, Black Entertainment News. You go to that website, all you do is see anti-police information. If there's a police problem out there, and instead of talking about education, pull up your pants, comb your hair, learn how to talk and learn how to commit to your family, there's nothing about the positive messaging that BET allows us to have. And I tell you what's really bothers me, go back and you see Martin Luther King demonstrations, and see even when they put in jail, they have white shirts and their ties. Why, in the middle of summer, they dress that way? Because not only are they fighting racist laws, but they're fighting racist stereotypes. The stereotypes of slouchy, inarticulate, not educated, but love to sing and dance. Well, go to BET. You find slouchy, inarticulate, can't I speak two sentences without a curse word, but they love to sing and dance. That stereotype by the white Democrats that have been pushing into my community is now what is being emulated by all these kids out there, and they are totally hopeless because they know there's no income they can generate out there other than getting it from somebody else. It's socialism. It's Marxism. And that's what Democrats do best. And they do it by stealth. And again, I want to say this over again. They're cowards, and they're bullies, and they're racists. And we as a country need to pull back the curtains and have them stand before us and explain to us, Viacom, why are you putting this information? We know why. Explain to us why this is happening, though. And I think at that point, once the accountability, our police will be a little bit more protected because there'll be some accountability on the side of these cowards.
All right, so listen, let's turn a little positive now. I think we've identified a lot of the problem. I want to start turning a little positive because I saw an article that you quoted in Breitbart recently, actually applauding Ben Watson, who is a player for the Baltimore Ravens, one of your brothers from the NFL, that you blazed the path for, really. And he was out there saying some truth, talking about how Planned Parenthood was really about, I don't want to say, terminating a community or a race, but it was targeted towards the black community. And he learned that lesson from history, and he spoke up about it. And, you stepped right up and stood right next to him and saying, good on you for speaking some truth to power right there. Is there hope that some people are starting to wake up within... I know in my community I'm hoping it's going to happen because, to be perfectly honest, in the white community, there is an incentive to remain number one. You know what I mean? Not to help, and that's where these liberal Democrats kind of shoot from. They want to lose their position. But do you have some hope that there's going to be some sort of change coming within the community?
I do, and I appreciate you having the chance to give me to leave you guys with some hope. Because here's a couple of things we need to do. First thing, white Americans, stop apologizing. You have absolutely nothing to apologize for. We have a great ancestry that has allowed, through their faults and their best efforts, to give us the freest country in the history of mankind. Be proud of that. And as black Americans, I tell you, I take it as an offense to apologize to me because my parents, my grandparents did everything they could to gain the respect, and they earned the respect by succeeding. And that's what I talk about in my book. So let's not apologize. Be proud of who we are, and let's not take the messaging of these socialists and do so. The other thing is this. There's 28% of black Americans out there that feel the same way I do. They love their country, our race, our kids, and our future, and we need to become political free agents. Political free agent says this: we're not going to vote 90% groupthink anymore. If we're capitalists, guys, we don't vote for socialists. Let's look at values. Let's look at principles. If you're Christians, the last thing a Christian does is vote for an atheist. If you believe in education for our kids, or even our poor kids,